I have a fiancé, but I'm falling in love with a married man. All right, so the original post was actually deleted. And I think it's actually kind of interesting to read the original title. My 28 female fiancé, 28 male, has some huge request in order for him to regain his trust. Is his request too far? Posted back in June of 2023. We've been together for 6 years now, and during the 3rd year of our relationship, I cheated on him with a close family friend. Okay. I had started taking him for granted, and it became easy to cheat because I didn't value the relationship. He broke up with me and we were split for months, and the times I was single, I realized he is a great boyfriend.
We don't like you.
I begged for him back and he took me back, but I had to promise to never speak to the guy again. Is that the request? I feel like that's literally the bare minimum. Wait. I'm happy to say I never cheated since then, and I haven't been tempted at all. I understand how great of a partner I have.
You sure about that?
That being said, the guy I cheated with was a close family friend, and recently I rekindled our friendship behind his back.
Right to jail, right away.
Nothing romantic. You ever meet someone who's a terrible partner but a great friend? That's him. I hated the fact that I let a stupid mishap ruin our friendship. My fiance found out and was angry. Yeah, I would be too. I apologized and we talked, and he needed space. He sent me a text of his demands to continue the relationship, and I copied and pasted it. After doing some thinking, I can't trust you. Whether it was platonic or not, this is the second time that I know of where you have violated my trust. The hardest part isn't this, but now I have to wonder how many times you violated my trust or done something behind my back that I just don't know about. You claim this is it, but how can I believe you? I love you and want to work on this relationship, but it's going to require a lot from you. I mean, the fact that he's even willing to forgive you at this point is kind of cray-cray. We're postponing our wedding indefinitely. When we first got back together, it took 10 months before I felt secure in the relationship again. I have no idea how long it will take to feel secure again. Eli, I changed the name, will be blocked on everything, and you are never allowed to speak to him again. This now includes family events. If you know he will be there, do not attend. If you didn't know and he attends, you are to ignore him. I have unrestricted access to phones, social media, emails, etc. Every password I want to know for any device you have. No hanging out with male friends alone. You are to be home by 1 if you do go out with your homegirls. There will be more, but these are my demands and they aren't up for discussion. If you aren't willing to do it, then the relationship is over. Take your time to think about it. Okay, I feel like you're not really in the position to make demands. I personally think this relationship is doomed. You should always be able to trust your partner, which is why it's literally so hard to go back after someone violates trust like this. The fact that he's willing to take you back and these are the parameters, I'm sorry, but like, if you want the relationship to work, you're gonna have to do it. You've proved not once, but twice that you can't be trusted. You can either deal with it or start fresh with somebody new and learn from this. I called him, but he said he's not arguing with me about it, and don't call him back until I decide what I want to do. I feel that's extremely harsh considering the fact that I didn't cheat this time. It doesn't matter, you still violated the trust. He had literally one ask of you, okay? You made it worse for yourself. Ever since we got back together, I've never cheated on him.
Once a cheater, always a cheater.
But you did violate his trust. Like, let's not sugarcoat this. Okay, again, the original post was deleted. So this is up from Best of Redditor updates. So these are the comments that OP posted. I think I was wrong, but I feel that the punishment doesn't fit the crime. I made a horrible mistake years ago. Being friends with someone doesn't equal cheating, even though I was wrong for going behind his back. Okay, yeah, you didn't cheat, but again, you knew that this was the one thing that you were supposed to do, and you didn't do it. It doesn't really sound like you respect the relationship at all. And I understand that you have to see this person, but like, your relationship should be more important than hanging out with like a family friend. OOP then is convinced to follow her boyfriend's rules. Okay, I'll do it. I just needed to make sure he wasn't going too far, but if this is what it takes to rebuild his trust. Commenters then said that OOP is likely to cheat on her boyfriend again.
Once a cheater, always a cheater.
Yeah, see, this is why it's like, why do you even have a problem with this if you're not planning on doing something else? Like, what about this family-friend relationship is so important to you? OOP responded to those claims and said, "You don't think I'll follow the rules?
Nope.
Good thing I don't let people tell me what I can't do. I'm going to be laughing when we work through this, get married, and have kids."
The lie detector test determined.
Okay, so we do have a little baby update. We had a really great conversation and he was vulnerable and said it made him feel like I didn't value him. I see that. He was crying and it really hurt me to see the pain I caused him. He told me that please let's not go forward with this unless I can promise I won't go behind his back again because he can't go through this pain again. Ugh. Poor thing. I told him that I promise I will never hurt him again and will always be honest and upfront with him now. We talked about the rules and he said they will be temporary and will be adjusted when we go to couples therapy. Now it's time to put in the work to repair the relationship. I know it will be a lot of extra work, but I'm prepared. So there is another update. 10 months later. Yeah, this is also deleted. We'll find out why. So I'll be married this fall. I've been with an amazing guy and we worked through a lot of issues together. I thought I loved him and I think I still do, but I'm not in love with him. About 3 months ago at my job, we got a new coworker who is very handsome and extremely attractive. I mean, I've never been so physically attracted to someone in my life. We started to deepen our friendship, but romantic feelings came. I repressed mine, but to my surprise, he confessed his feelings to me as well. I told him we gotta think about our spouses. Oh, okay, so he's married too, or like in a relationship too.
I'm side-eyeing you so hard right now.
But our feelings continued to grow. He told me he stopped being affectionate with his wife because he feels like he's cheating on me when he does that. He only wants to be affectionate with me. I've started doing the same thing and I haven't been intimate with my partner. The thing is, a lot of people will be hurt when this comes out. He can't divorce his wife right away because of finances, but he will as soon as possible.
I've heard that one before.
I have to call off the wedding, but I don't want to hurt my current fiance. I mean, too late for that.
The lie detector test determined that was a lie.
The way that people justify cheating is just cray-cray to me. I don't know if I would entirely believe him about divorcing his wife. This is a lot of eggs to put in one basket when the guy isn't even available. And trust me when I say that divorce is a very, very, very messy thing, especially when there's been infidelity. It's gonna be messy. And like, he might decide that it's not worth it in the end. When asked about her previous infidelity, OOP said, I have cheated before and I'm starting to realize this because I didn't understand being in love. With the guy I'm seeing, we both aren't romantic with our current partners. I don't want to be with anyone but him. I mean, right now you don't.
Well, that was lust, not love.
Also, he's going to divorce his wife. We have a plan for when his finances get straight. Okay.
That's not happening.
So how is OOP justifying this affair? This is completely different.
Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. They're the same picture.
The first time I cheated was because I was selfish. This time it was because I fell in love with someone else. I didn't choose this. No one picks who they love. This whole experience has taught me how complex love is, and I've never been in love before. I mean, how do you know that this is love, though? You seem to like not really be entirely sure about what love really is. And like, how can you really be sure that you love someone when you're literally not even together yet? Okay, so OOP says, she's fighting for her life in the comments. I'm assuming.
I guess we'll never know.
Yeah, it seems like she's going to tell her fiance, which leads me to the next update. April 18th, 2024. I took everyone's advice and I decided to end things with my fiance. I mean, yeah, you should have done that. Like, let's not justify why you're doing what you're doing. At the end of the day, you are stopping this guy who gave you more than one chance from finding someone who actually would treat him with respect. And I feel like he's gonna have major trust issues after this. This was the hardest thing I had to do in my life. I know you guys think I'm a terrible person, but this is an unimaginable situation to find yourself in.
And whose fault is that?
I want everyone to know how much this hurt. I really wish I didn't fall in love with someone else. I wish I could make myself fall in love with my fiance, but I can't. It took me so long to accept this. I feel like you just want things that you can't have. And that's like your own issues. I hope you guys can understand that I can't convey this enough that I care about my fiance. I know this will be best for both of us, even though it's hard right now. When asked if OOP told her fiance the truth, she said, I didn't lie. I told him the truth. I told him that I fell in love with someone else. I told him I still care about him. I kept telling you that I all care about him and I would never use him as backup. He's a great guy and there's a woman out there who will love him and be lucky to have him. There's no reason we both can't be happy. When commenters told OOP that there's no way the married man is gonna leave his wife for her, she says he is going to divorce his wife. Unfortunately, divorce is extremely complicated, but he says he will keep me updated. Yeah, I would stay far away from that guy until things actually transpire. It's not just finances, but a lot of other legal stuff, correct? And that will be very, very difficult. And he probably will back out. I'm just saying, like, how do you want a relationship to start this way? It's so rare that it actually works out. If I were dating someone and this person like had like a husband or a wife, and this person like didn't care about the sanctity of marriage, didn't care about the promises that they made, I would lose a lot of respect for them, quite frankly. That is not a good way to like be introduced to someone. How is this supposed to start out well? I don't know. Since I wasn't married yet, it was easy to end things. For him, it's a lot more complicated than that.
That's what they all say.
When commenters continue to call OOP gullible, she said, no, I was very clear in our conversation today that I want this figured out by the end of the year. That's plenty of time for him to figure out the finances and legal stuff. That way, by 2025, we can focus on each other. And lastly, honestly, the satisfying update you have been waiting for. You guys were right. I'm scared, but I'm not. I love being right. If there are a few things in this world that get me going, it's the words, you were right. I realized I treated my fiance horrible and received my karma. My coworker and his wife are getting a divorce because she found out he was cheating with multiple women, plural. He lied to me and others, pretending that they were the only one. I ended things with him. I'm glad he's exposed. Now, regarding my ex-fiance, I've taken the time to reflect and realize he's actually my true love.
It's too late for that. Way too late.
No, he's not. You are not good enough for this guy. I hate that I hurt him. I reached out again, but he said he will always love me, but he's done with me. That was painful to hear. Good. Learn from this. I can't get over what my coworker did in destroying multiple relationships, including mine. It's painful to see and experience. It's one thing if you develop a crush on someone. Like if you think someone's attractive, like we all have eyes, right? You can be in a relationship and still, kind of think someone that is attractive. If you're choosing to let yourself just like fall, it really is a choice at the end of the day. There's always gonna be like attractive people out there in the world. There's always gonna be people that are trying to flirt with you. It's what you do with those feelings and how you entertain them that stops the cheating from happening in the first place. Edit, I wasn't clear, but I take responsibility for my actions. Just because I'm condemning his disgusting and manipulative behavior doesn't mean I'm justifying my actions. My actions were horrible, but I've learned from them.
I don't believe you.
I feel like you might eventually. Multiple people's lives were collateral in your decisions, poor decision making. And I hope that you learn now. I hope that you've learned that it's not okay and it's not worth it. I can't say this was a happy ending for you, OOP, but I can say that it is a happy ending for your fiance, who did learn eventually that you're not worth it. I hate to say it, but I don't actually. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. This looks like to me the consequences of your actions. I'm glad it worked out for him in the end. All right, I feel like we need some poetic justice. This was posted in Pro Revenge. I ruined my ex-boyfriend's life of 20 plus years ago, and I just made sure it stayed ruined. I love a villain arc. When I was in college in the 90s, I met Jake. then male 23, through mutual friends. He'd already graduated and was planning to move to the opposite side of the United States for grad school, and I had already been making plans to move with my friends only 90 minutes away from where he was moving to. We had so much in common, fell in love, and it really seems like fate. Both planning to move 3,000 miles and landing so close together. He had 2 sisters and a younger brother who were all awesome people, and I became instant friends with them as well. Because he was in school and I was working, I would usually go to him to hang out on weekends. He was renting a house with 2 roommates, also in his program. We were young, so money was tight, but we had fun. We went for taco dates, spent a lot of time at his house when he was breeding and selling small animals. Jake was an animal sciences PhD student, so being around animals was normal, and I loved it. I met and became friends with his advisor's wife, Mary, mid-50s, who worked in administration at the university. She is a lovely woman, and I would often have lunch with her when I went over on the weekends. Jake was a teaching assistant, and I had met other people in the program and made friends with them faster than he did. After about 2 years of dating, I was at the house one day and we were laying in bed together in a state of some undress, and he said out of the blue,
He was concerned I'd been gaining weight, and it made it harder for him to be attracted to me.
no concern about my health. It was all about him finding me unattractive. I sat up and said, well, then maybe you should make sure there's better food for me to eat than crackers and cheese when I come up on weekends. Ooh, yeah, that'll do it. Even at 23, I didn't take that kind of BS. I'd gained maybe 10 pounds since meeting him 2 years earlier and still wore the same size clothes, about a US size 6 to 8. It is interesting, like at the beginning of a relationship, it's almost like happy weight, right? Because like you're not going out as much, like you're not as worried about like what you're looking like in a bikini. You're staying home, you're snacking, you're watching movies. You're just like not moving as much at the beginning. It's totally normal to gain a little bit of weight. I know that I did. It's happy weight, genuinely. But I feel like the way he said that you gain weight was a little rude. Like a little, right? Like, is it just me or is that kind of... I wasn't going to engage in a fight about it after all. It was his problem, not mine. So I asked him calmly, so what's your solution to this? He stared at me blankly and said,
Well, I guess that you should try to lose weight.
and I said, nah, I'm not going to do that. So what are you going to do about it? He said,
Well, I guess nothing. I wanted to let you know how I feel.
and I said, cool, thank you. Put my clothes back on. Went to sleep and drove home the next day as usual. I feel like he is inadvertently telling you that it's your fault that he's cheating.
Well, it's your fault because you let yourself go. It's your fault because you don't give me attention.
Whatever they say. That was a warning, baby girl. We keep dating, and 3 months later, he called me and said he wanted to break up after close to 3 years. The reason, and I quote,
You don't know enough about science.
okay, yet another reason why he's trying to justify probably cheating on you and breaking up with you. He felt like he couldn't have a conversation with me about his work where he didn't have to use common names for animals instead of scientific ones. Okay. I said, well, that's bull. What's the real reason? He said it was the real reason. He came to see me a month later to return something of mine, and I confronted him, demanding the real reason. He finally admitted that he'd been seeing one of his undergrad students. Let's call her Meg, a 19-year-old. He was 26 then, and her teacher, oh yeah, no, that's like, no, we could get somebody fired for that. And let me guess, that's the purposes of this post. I screamed at him to leave. My roommate threatened to throw him off our second floor balcony if he didn't go, and he left. It hit me all at once after he walked out, and I went from rage to stunned laughter. I met Meg a few times, and at one point she was at his house for a barbecue, and I spilled something all over her pants. Jake asked me if I could loan her some sweats. I couldn't because I was a size 8, and she was a size 18. Oh. Okay, so what happened to you not being attracted to him because of your size?
That was a lie. It's always been a lie.
Nothing wrong with that at all, but the point is, I realized he made those comments about my weight to try and get me to break up with him because he was a coward. Yeah, it could have been to like get you to break up with him and he was just being a dick, but it also could have been that he was trying to justify why he wasn't attracted to you and why he wanted to like cheat. Anyways, I emailed his roommates. It was the early 2000s. It's how you communicated anything you didn't want to say on the phone. I wanted to let them know we'd broken up, and they were always lovely to me and thanked them for being friends. They both admitted they knew about Meg and were the ones to demand that Jake tell me or they would. That's when he broke up with me with the lame, you don't understand science excuse. One of his roommates, a super nice cute guy named George, offered to help me get a few things still at their house that he had collected for me. He suggested I come up for the weekend, we go out and drink and have a good time. All the things Jake didn't want to waste money on. And I said, sure. Oh, we like George. So I went up and George let me into the house while Jake was gone. I took photos of all his animals because while I might not be a PhD student, I paid attention and knew he had an endangered species in his care. Oh. He wasn't breeding it. It was an unreleasable animal he'd taken in from a rescue organization. Interesting. There was paperwork he had to submit with a $25 fee and he refused to do it, saying he didn't want the government in his business.
The government!
I took photos of that animal, all his breeding conditions, and took a photo of an animal not allowed in the state, which was in a tank right next to a window and visible from outside. I then went out for a night on the town with George. We stumbled in early around midnight so Jake and Meg, who were watching TV, would see me in a short dress, drunk, and George practically carrying me. Ooh. I spent the night in George's room. He was a total gentleman, but he made sure to leave the room and parade past them in his boxers a few times. And moan loudly so they could hear us. When I went to leave the next morning, Jake said I didn't have to act like a hoor in front of him as I ate a donut slowly in my rumpled dress with messy hair, while George beamed at me and then planted a kiss on my head. If you're a hoor, then what does that make him? Meg looked ashamed, not quite knowing where to look, and I said, have fun with my leftovers, and walked out. I wanted to think the petty, loud hookup and a few juvenile insults was my revenge. It was not. Like, I could even just tell by the spiciness, like at the beginning of the story, that like, you ain't gonna let this slide. The next day, I had my photos developed. The good old days. And called the state office Fish and Wildlife. I reported the animals in the house, the potential overcrowding of breeding animals, and the 2 animals he shouldn't legally have at all in the state, and asked them how to make a report. Turns out, Jake wasn't well liked by his peers in his program or by his roommates, but I was. George had suggested that he and their other roommate could submit complaints to the university, that a TA was sleeping with one of his students and showing her favoritism. The night we were out at the bars, we made sure to tell the story to anyone who they knew. They made sure all women in his classes knew he was with Meg. It wasn't a large program, so people knew fast he had cheated and is now dating his student. George and the other roommate made sure people knew they had put in complaints, sick of Jake's entitled BS. With my full statement made and photos sent to the state wildlife officials, I called my friend Mary, Jake's advisor's wife. She knew about the breakup and lame reason, and I let her know he admitted that he was gooing with a student. I'd been emailing with him and he admitted to it in writing, so I sent that to Mary. To say she was not happy about that was an understatement. She said she made sure it would be investigated and told her husband, Jake's direct advisor, while I was on the phone with her. Speaking of investigations, a few weeks later, George called me, giddy, to say the Fish and Wildlife officials were there confiscating animals. He told them he would be happy to tell them whatever they needed to know. Meg was there when it happened and told the officials as far as she knew, all the animals belonged to her boyfriend Jake, and they were all legal. That put George and the other roommate in the clear. One animal was kept in the backyard, so it was implied to Jake that a neighbor reported it. While they were there to investigate, they knew to look in the back window to see the far more problematic, illegal, to have in the state, under any circumstances, animal. Oh goodness. Since George was on the lease, he was able to let them in to investigate the house. The animals were all in communal areas and the officers stayed there for a few hours and returned with a warrant to take all the animals and enter Jake's room to investigate. George and the other roommate let them into their rooms with no issues and were quickly cleared. Meg, apparently, couldn't get a hold of Jake and eventually drove to the university to find him. Remember, no cell phones yet. It was a good day. The only animals they left were some guppies in a fish tank. If cheating isn't reason enough, hurting all the people around you, blowing up your life, and like morals as well. If that isn't reason enough, make sure that you don't cheat on someone like this OP.
Cheaters never prosper.
Now, PhD students need grant money to do research, and a large part of animal studies funding comes from the federal government. Jake had just gotten an EPA grant right around the time when we broke up. So I called the EPA and asked how I would report that person with a federal grant was being investigated for illegally harboring endangered animals. Long story short, he lost his grant and had to make restitution on what had already been used, which was close to $30,000.
I am never gonna financially recover from this.
He would never be able to get another federal grant. Oh goodness, you're going full scorched earth on this guy. He avoided jail time on the state charges since all the animals were in good health, but lost all his breeding animals, worth thousands of dollars. Since they were collected for safekeeping during the investigation, when the 2 illegal animals were taken. In the end, he owed a $15,000 fine, and the 2 animals went to a nearby nature center. For years, I would stop by in the area to visit them. The university revoked his scholarship and fired him for having an inappropriate relationship with a student. He somehow escaped being expelled, but it always shocked me that he never tried to hide the relationship with Meg, and was so stupidly self-assured he didn't even wait the 4 weeks until she would have been done with his class to start publicly dating her. By the university rules, he would have been in the clear to date her, not being her teacher anymore, and she would just have to avoid any classes he was a TA in. It never fails to make me laugh. After a few months, I emailed his sisters and said I miss them because Jake broke up with me after trying to call me fat and cheating on me, and I felt weird contacting them. The girls told me he told the family I broke up with him because of the distance. I forwarded the emails that Jake wrote after the breakup, talking about how he fell for Meg and he was sorry, but it was true. I couldn't keep up with him academically and it made him attracted to Meg. For someone who claims to be on such a high horse, like,
I'm too smart for you.
buddy, you pretty sloppy. Jake managed to convince his dad to pay for 1 more year of school so he could get a master's instead of a PhD. And while I stayed in contact with his sisters and brother via email and then social media, I largely let it all go. I got even, made some friends, Mary became like an auntie to me, and I went on with life. I went on to get a master's degree myself, and my specialty? Helping scientists and doctors communicate their work to lay people. You know, us dummies who can't remember all the scientific names.
I'm going to jot your name down in my book of enchanting, success-filled people that are winning at life.
Stop right now. That is cray-cray. I swear, it happened by accident, not design, but I love it. And I work with everyone from small-town doctors and nurses to pharmaceutical companies to museums to state and federal governments and film and TV producers. I travel a lot and speak and get to learn a lot of cool things about our planet and how things work. That is some really serious dramatic irony. Like, this is great. The fact that you got a job in something that he used to make fun of you for, said you weren't kind of smart enough to understand, that is just delicious. I knew through his siblings that Jake and Meg got married and had 2 kids. Meg dropped out of the sciences and became an accountant. Jake went back to breeding animals. Every once in a while, his sisters or brother would tell me something over lunch or via text. We had our own relationship that exists outside of him. You are just keeping tabs on this dude. This is very funny and all, but I hope that we are moving on. I'm excited to read the end of it, but like, I hope that's it, because like, let's not be too obsessed with people that hurt us, you know? It's like, they're not even worth it in the end, right? Apparently, when I sent a wedding gift for one of his sisters, he loudly complained at a co-ed bridal shower that all his siblings still were my friend and didn't make an effort to embrace his now wife, Meg. Apparently, the sister just laughed and said, I don't make a habit to be friends with homewreckers. This is how Jake's parents found out how their relationship started and ours ended, 10 years after we broke up. Jake never found out I was behind reporting him to the state, and in the end, I didn't lie about a single thing, except maybe exaggerating a drunken makeout session with George, who is now a successful and tenured professor with a lovely wife and daughters. Oh, okay. I was kind of hoping that like George would like end up in the picture somehow, but that's okay. Fast forward about 20 years to a few weeks ago. I was at a university giving a lecture to a room of 250 undergrad and grad students. In the end, I was mingling with the students afterward, and I heard a voice say,
Hey OP, long time no see.
And I realized it's Jake. I didn't change the expression on my face at all. I was completely shocked, and my instinct was to play dumb. Oh my God, no. Wait. So I said, I'm sorry, help me out. Have we met at another workshop or lecture? He looked incredulous and said to me,
It's Jake.
And I said, I can't place you, but I would love to figure it out. Finally, I gasped. And I said, oh my goodness, Jake. I guess I blocked you out and said, well, lovely to see you, and moved on quickly when he tried to reach out and hug me. I was happy to leave it there, with the satisfaction of him seeing me as a guest lecturer in a science department of a major university when he was just in the audience. But you're too dumb for him, remember? The department chair and faculty who invited me to speak took me out to dinner while there, and one of them said, so, you know Jake? I said I did from over 20 years ago, being vague about how. She went on to tell me he'd been there for an interview for a teaching position and had spent a few days there observing, and they were likely going to hire him. I couldn't control it. I scoffed. When they all looked at me and said, I'm sorry, I'm just shocked he's teaching after what happened at the university. They said, what happened? And I said, well, he was with a 19-year-old student when he was 26, and he had to leave the program without a PhD because he couldn't afford to stay after losing his scholarship. The three people I was with all looked at each other like they knew they had a problem and said, wow, we'll have to look into that. And then they changed the subject. My old friend Mary, retired a year or two now, but still friendly with her old colleagues, called me this weekend to say a friend at the university let her know someone had called doing a background check about Jake, and they pulled his file, which included being fired, leaving the program with a lower degree, and the complaint letters from over 20 years ago about his conduct. Mary's name had been on it with her husband listed as the faculty advisor, so she thought she'd like to know. As a bonus, it had a copy of his arrest record for illegal animals. I guess his dad had paid for a decent lawyer to get the record expunged after the charges were reduced, and he paid the fine so it doesn't show up on a standard background check. I don't think he's gonna get that job. So I will return to my life, content that the universe comes through sometimes, especially if you give it a nice nudge every now and again. The best revenge is when you don't do anything wrong, you just have to help direct knowledge to the right place. If there's anything I can impart to any young woman and man reading this, as I shimmy happily into my now size 10 pants, it's that if someone who's supposed to love you complains about your weight or looks, that's their problem to fix mentally, not yours. And maybe it's time to check out what they're doing behind your back or simply move on. Remember though, it's their flaw, not yours. If Jake hadn't been a coward and tried to make me break up with him and just ended things with me the mature way, I might not have found out about Meg and turned his own wickedness back on himself.
That was a nice story. That was a good one. Thank you for sharing.
Loved every second of it. But let's remember, some people aren't really worth all this, okay? The best revenge is success. And don't you forget it. Subscribe!